everybody! Welcome to our channel, and let's get straight to business of checking out new additions to our virtual collection. We tend to accumulate all kinds of fossils, but the petrified wood is what we like the most. So, from time to time, we acquire serious pieces. And today, we have the pleasure of sharing some of them with you. We have two fabulous slabs of petrified wood and silicified spore cone from a plant akin to modern-day horsetails. The first display piece is worthy of any natural history museum. It came from Arizona. Such a vivid coloration with dominating flamboyant red spots is a hallmark of petrified wood from Chinle Formation dating back 200 million years ago. The type of tree is Araucaria, also known as a monkey puzzle tree. You can still find living Araucarias. Isolated patches of ancient Araucaria forests do exist in Argentina and Chile. This plant has scaly leaves and nutrient-rich seeds that supported the herbivore dinosaurs and other creatures during the Jurassic period. In fact, scientists hypothesize that long necks of sauropods were an adaptation allowing these dinosaurs to reach the young and soft branches of Araucaria trees. Preparation of a specimen of this size often involves stabilization, when the slab is treated with epoxy resin that fills tiny cracks and improves integrity of the rock. This particular petrified wood is very hard, and polishing it takes some effort. So, leaving one side unpolished makes sense. In our case, the surface, where epoxy was applied, is covered with felt, making it safe to put on various surfaces without being afraid of scratching them. The trunk of a petrified tree looks similar to a regular boulder. Rough surface, not really showy at all, like many gems, by the way. Polishing is what brings out the fine features and bright colors. You can even see cell structures and tiny layers of agate formed in the space opened up by the cracks in the wood. Fun fact, in geology, boulders are rocks with a size larger than 10.1 inches in diameter. Everything smaller is called a cobble or pebble. Cobbles are between 2.5 and 10.1 inches in diameter. Using a combination of an eyepiece from a dissecting scope and a digital camcorder, we created a homemade video microscope, which will help us explore the surface of the slab from the edge to the middle and observe a variety of the spectacular microscopic patterns of this specimen. Such a fusion of cellular structures with layered mineral deposits is very unusual and leaves a strange feeling. It's like biology and geology are blended together in a weird way. It also helps to understand how petrified wood is formed, when chemical elements like iron, manganese, and copper diffuse into the organic tissue together with silica and grow as minerals inside it. If you have polished petrified wood in your collection, have you ever wondered what kind of beautiful microscopic visual delights your specimens hold? One more thing to check out is radioactivity. We firmly believe that every rock collector should have a Geiger counter and test the level of radioactivity of all specimens. You never know what kind of minerals a rock can accumulate during eons spent underground. The larger the piece, the more radioactive material it can contain. In our case, the average count was 16.6 events per minute, with 22 maximum. This is essentially in line with ambient levels in our residence, and 2 times lower than readings we've gotten from a megalodon tooth. The other specimens of petrified wood from Arizona that we tested did not really have much radioactive material in them, but remember, every specimen is unique. Let's move on to another interesting piece. It's a much smaller slab of Araucaria tree from Madagascar, the 4th largest island on the planet. It has a pale brown color and striking pattern of cracks. We used to think that petrified wood from Madagascar is boring, but recently many colorful slabs with attractive patterns started to appear. This section has practically intact cellular pattern. The layers inside the agate formed along the cracks in the wood are caused by changes in the conditions during deposition. It could be a reflection of a rainy season or series of volcanic ash fallouts, or something else that was happening many millions of years ago, when the trunk of a fallen Araucaria tree was being petrified. buried in mineral-rich mud or ash. In a way, it resembles year rings on the wood, except that this particular tree was growing constantly in a warm tropical environment and did not form the rings. This is a silicified cone. Similar fossils become quite common after the deposits were discovered in the Western Sahara, supposedly dating back to the Eocene period. They are often mistaken for and sold as pine cones. In reality, it is not a pine cone, it's a spore cone, because instead of seeds, it bore spores of a primitive plant from the horsetail family. The fossil is called Equicala strobus, and the word refers to strobili, a scientific name used for the spore cones. Here is the lower part of the cone, where it was attached to the stem. It doesn't look like that in a pine cone, right? The cone consists of many hexagonally shaped sporangiophores. The scar in the middle of each sporangiophore is what's left of a leaf-like attachment that could have made a cone originally covered with brittle scales or spines, probably for protection. Hexagonal shield-like features are called ambo, by the way. This is a curious, approximately 40 to 45 million years old rock, and we decided to acquire it while the supplies last. Although we did see them being sold in large quantities, sometimes by buckets. But you probably will agree with me, there is no way it will go on forever. Hi everybody! Today we will continue our journey to the world of petrified wood. We have a bunch of new specimens to examine. Exhibit number 1 is an easily recognizable type of petrified wood, often called teredo board wood. Large oval structures represent cross-sections of burrows. The creatures that made the burrows are wood-eating saltwater clams called teredo worms. These are bivalve mollusks that have elongated soft bodies resembling worms. In the process of devouring underwater logs, they create tunnels inside of the wood. The tunnels eventually become filled with a fine-grained sediment. In the case of this rock, it was a mix of radiolarian shells made of silica. The light color of the sediment, shape, and size of the oval structures brings about the visual association to peanuts. Hence the name peanut wood, applied to the petrified wood found in Western Australia. The peanut wood comes from Windalia Formation of the Lower Cretaceous period, estimated 122 to 112 million years old. This type of petrified wood is a jewelry-grade lapidary material, and it is often made into cabochons with original patterns. Kennedy Range is a well-known mining location and a probable origin for this specimen. The teredo worms, by the way, can be found in coastal mangrove forests. People living on the river island of Marajo in Brazil search for the worm-infested trunks during low tide, split those trunks to extract mollusks, and eat the mollusks essentially raw after cleaning and adding lemon juice. They call mollusks turu. In the Philippines, the teredo worm is a local delicacy under the name of tamilok. At the time when ships were made of wood, teredo worms were a serious problem. They've got nicknamed shipworm for their role in destroying the vessels. Christopher Columbus and Sir Francis Drake both experienced shipworm-associated disasters. Looking at the white spots of the fossil under the microscope, we did observe several structures similar to foraminiferous shells. I wonder what else could be trapped in those holes with sediment. The brown areas have distinct bundles of plant vessels. The peanut wood could be attributed to different trees. Our best guess is conifer, perhaps from genus Podocarpus. With smooth, creamy white edges, this rock looks and feels like a piece of Tehran, a nougat confection filled with roasted almonds. Shall we call it candy rock? Anyway, let's move on to another fossil, Tempska fern from Northern America. We generally avoid buying unpolished petrified wood, but could not pass up this opportunity due to the scarcity of the material. We tried to polish the slab a bit with 1000 and 1500 grit sandpaper, but honestly, it did not improve the situation. It has been established that Tempska ferns grew in the forests of the early Cretaceous period. Although radiometric dating suggests that the specimens from Cedar Mountain Formation, for example, are 97 million years old, which extends the timeline to the Cenomanian age, an early part of the late Cretaceous. Even unpolished, the slab produced interesting fluorescent images with a variety of patterns. The cut is quite thin, and light can be seen shining through what used to be plant vessels, currently filled with semi-transparent silica minerals. Here's another Temsca specimen. Different color, which depends on the mineral composition of surrounding sediments. Based on the coloration, this piece is probably coming from Greenhorn Mountain, Oregon, while previous darker piece looks like those found near Blanding, Utah. The false trunks of these tree ferns consist of several hundreds of intertwined stems and petioles. The diameter of the trunks, up to half a meter, suggests that the plants might reach heights of 6 meters. Although, considering how the morphology resembles the one of palm trees, I think the Temsca ferns could be taller. The size of petioles is tiny, implying that the fronds sticking out of the false trunks were kind of small. There are several species described for the Temsca family, but they may represent different developmental stages or various levels of the same trunk. In paleobotany, it is a common situation due to the fragmented nature of the fossil record. This next specimen represents a locality known as Sweet Home Petrified Forest, and was found in a driftwood deposit on a private ranch. Here we can clearly see growth rings. Sweet Home Petrified Forest in Lynn County is part of a scattered tertiary deposits discovered at the eastern side of Williamette Valley in the state of Oregon. Around the Oligocene period, to the late Miocene, let's say roughly 30 to 10 million years ago, the place was much closer to the ocean coast at that time and likely had a warmer climate. Regular fallouts of volcanic ash contributed to the creation of the petrified wood in this area. Over 50 species of trees have been identified among fossils found in the area, more specifically Marker Ranch, where some limited private digs happen and may still be possible by appointment. The microscopic structure of our piece corresponds to hardwood, but it's difficult to be more precise. It looks like it could be willow, buckeye, or even persimmon. In my opinion, it's the variety of species that are not commonly found in other localities that makes the Sweet Home Petrified Forest a special place. We have one more piece from the same area. Even though the microscopic structure is preserved only in a few spots, the growth rings are clearly visible. Thanks for watching! Give us a thumbs up to help the channel, but only if you like the video, and see you next time. By the way, we ended up spraying the unpolished Temsca fossil with a clear acrylic sealer, made to protect paintings. It was a bit of a desperate measure, but it did work to some extent. Hi everybody! Today we will be talking about new additions to our collection of petrified wood, a slab from Wyoming with tiny fossilized seed shrimp in it, a rare Rexoxylon from southern Africa, a primitive conifer Woodworthia found in Zimbabwe, and a black-centered piece from Indonesia. They all are distinct types of petrified wood and must-haves for any collection. If you want to learn cool information about the specimen and see how they look under a microscope or UV light, stay tuned. Let's start with a very special rock from a famous location known as Blue Forest. What's unusual about this particular specimen is that it also contains remnants of tiny animals, seed shrimp, hidden in the cracks of the wood. The scientific name is ostracods. Fun fact: parthenogenesis, or propagation by females only, is known for several species of modern ostracods. They also produce eggs that can withstand prolonged drying. Teeny tiny round white objects suspended inside the semi-transparent stone might have been those eggs. We also noticed puffy barrel-like structures in the specimen that look very much like termite droppings. The vast majority of the logs from this location are covered in petrified algae, an indication that, at one point in time, they were standing in the water. The thick layer of algae eventually dried and shrank, creating spaces that were filled with chalcedony, agate, and calcite. Occasionally, small creatures got trapped in the cracks and turned into stone as well. The algal layers sometimes have distinct stromatolite-like appearances and might have been created by the cyanobacteria, which used to be called blue-green algae. The calcareous layer of the mineralized microbial coating is often removed during preparation of the samples using oxalic acid. This reveals the underlying agates of famous blue color, but in my view makes the specimen incomplete. Here's a different specimen with the layer of petrified algae still intact. It has fragile edges, crumbling upon the touch and shedding little fragments. No wonder people want to get rid of the unstable external layer. This piece also has a few ostracods. After studying the well-preserved cellular structures, scientists determined that the blue forest petrified wood represents the pepper tree, or Chinook cylon. The trunks are found at the depths of approximately 1 meter in a semi-arid and dusty Eden Valley, known for its long-lasting irrigation projects of the early 1900s. The common tool used by the prospectors to find logs is a metal probe, essentially a rod, which is pushed through the soil until it hits a rock. Then you can start digging, hoping that is the right kind of rock, because you may spend quite a bit of time and effort digging that hole. A similar probe, by the way, is also used by Florida's fossil hunters, looking for the right kind of river gravel containing shark teeth. The trees were growing in a swamp-like environment at the eastern edge of the large ancient lake Goshoot, about 52 million years ago. Geologically, Blue Forest is related to the famous Green River Formation, where fossilized fish imprints are coming from. It was an area with huge lakes, there were volcanic fields nearby, and they were the source of volcanic ash falling down on the lakes periodically. This part of the lake was the great habitat not only for fish, predominantly catfish and suckers, but also reptiles like turtles and crocodiles. The word blue refers to the bluish hues of the dark chalcedony that can be found inside of this particular type of petrified wood. The color is due to the traces of elements such as titanium, iron, cobalt, and manganese. It is believed that the black color is associated with the remnants of organic material rich in carbon. The light brown spots are formed when the carbon was washed out by the groundwater. This is what collectors called bleaching. When you examine the microscopic structures of the wood itself, you will notice plenty of regularly spaced large holes among the tiny cells. It's a typical feature of hardwood, distinguishing it from the softwood. The holes are vessels and they function as pipes, running along the trunk to deliver water and nutrients. In softwood, all cells can do this, and therefore they look more uniform. In hardwood, it's done through the special vessels. The trees were flowering dicots, and they had berries like modern-day pepper trees. The streaks of yellow fluorescence are likely due to calcite formed in the cracks. With no extra radioactivity and a formal appearance resembling a black suit, this slab is gorgeous. Even though having ostracods is not exactly a unique feature for Blue Forest petrified wood, it is still quite rare, and we are happy to have this piece in our collection. Now, let's move to a seed fern specimen supposedly from Africa. It represents an unusual and cool-looking petrified wood called Rexoxylon. It was a Mesozoic arborescent seed fern. The botanists use the word arborescent for plants that have a tree-like appearance and thus have trunks. The slab we have is just a slice of a Rexoxylon trunk. It has a central pith, which in most specimens has a hole in the middle, surrounded by a dozen or so large vascular bundles that look like rounded structures. Within those bundles, the plant cells were organized in an ordered fashion. Long, well-defined rows of cells, put tightly together like hair in a ponytail hairstyle. As a result, they reflect light like a bunch of well-brushed hairs. It creates a nice glimmering effect, often called chatoyancy. The word supposedly originates from French chatoyer, meaning shimmer or glitter. Similarly attractive light reflection is known for minerals like cat's eye and tiger's eye, as well as for some modern-day wood, curly maple and flame birch, for example. This particular type of seed ferns grew large and probably served as food and shade for various reptiles during the Triassic period. That's roughly 220 million years ago. As you probably know, the single landmass called Pangaea was the only continent at that time. This is why similar fossils are found not just in Africa, but also in South America and even Antarctica. When cut in a transverse cross-section and polished, rexoxylons reveal an interesting structure of the stem. The cambial rings surrounding the central pith were the source of new cells. They formed centripetal xylem wedges that extend towards the pith and, on the other side, the wedges of centrifugal xylem. The wedges were separated by parenchymatous rays. A bit complicated anatomy, which can be described as polyxylic. Anyway, here's our next piece. A classical woodworthia, a primitive conifer from Zimbabwe. The typical features of this wood are multiple traces of side branches and greenish hues in coloration that likely came from the traces of chromium. Although, recent data implies that not all green-colored petrified wood gets color from chromium. In some cases, dark green hues may be due to the presence of iron. To explain the structure of Woodworthia's trunk, we found a trunk of a modern-day conifer. It was cut close to the branches and shows elongated rays in places where branches were growing inside of the trunk. When you look around the rim of this slab, you will notice distinct scars left after the branches fell off. Under the microscope, the rows of tracheids are clearly visible. Their function was to deliver the water with minerals in an upward direction. The continuous bright lines are rays that transport nutrients, synthesized by the plant, to the central part of the trunk for storage. They are oriented horizontally. Our last piece selected for this video represents a trunk of a rainforest tree from Indonesia. Commercial digging for petrified wood on the islands of Java and Sumatra continues for over 30 years. The trees that were turned into stone now become a commodity and are sold as souvenirs. The fossils are being excavated with heavy machinery in large quantities at many of Indonesia's mining locations on the islands of Java and Sumatra. Most of the petrified trees from Indonesia belong to the Dipterocarpacea family. The name is a Greek word meaning two-winged fruit. They were quite abundant in swampy environment of Indo-Pacific Asia approximately 20 million years ago. This type of petrified wood is often described as tropical hardwood. Petrified wood is likely formed when massive amounts of volcanic ash cover the area. Although, swampy places with low oxygen environment could also facilitate wood petrifaction. The microscopic structure of this wood is characterized by the presence of large holes filled with silica. Those used to be vessels. The islets of smaller cells on the side of the vessels represent axial parenchyma aliform. It is believed that live cells of parenchyma perform metabolic duties in the wood. They serve as the storage place for carbohydrates, produce substances like resins and lignins. Parenchymal cells may also play a role in radial distribution of water and damage repair. We did check the radiation level, as always. Nothing alarming, not much higher than background radiation, meaning that it's safe to keep the specimens in our collection. Hi there! Today we have a bunch of specimens to discuss, and they all represent a fascinating kind of fossils called petrified wood. What is cool about petrified wood? First of all, many specimens are huge chunks of colorful gemstones with unique patterns. Secondly, the fossilized trees represent organisms that lived many million years ago, and even though it was Earth, the Earth itself was a quite different planet at that time, and who knows what beasts were hiding under the shadows of those trees. Nonetheless, the most amazing feature of petrified wood, in my view, is an exceptional preservation of minute details down to the cellular structure. Eons have passed since the trees were alive, and it is mind-blowing that you can still recognize individual cells looking under the microscope at a polished slab. However, many people, even those that collect petrified wood, rarely have a chance to actually observe the microscopic beauty of their specimens. In a few minutes, you will see what we were able to discover on the surface of the slabs that were recently added to our collection. We will also check the fluorescence of these rocks under UV light. So, stay tuned if you want to learn more about petrified wood. But first, let me show you an example of how we display the specimens in a shadow box. In order to fix the fossils in the desired position within the box, we made a mounting support from 3 layers of cardboard from a shipping box. The layers are glued together with regular all-purpose glue. The top layer has holes cut out with a scalpel or a razor, following the profile of the petrified wood slabs. Simple tracing with a pen will be enough to mark the edges of the slabs. The middle layer consists of short pieces that increase the thickness to keep the specimens stuck securely inside without falling out. The lowest layer is a plain piece serving as a base. We painted the top cardboard with black acrylic paint, inserted each specimen in its own slot, making sure it fits firmly, and placed this assembly into a shadow box. It looks very nice. Beware that if your specimen has bark, it may chip off, so you have to be careful to avoid such a mishap. Now, let's take a closer look at several pieces of petrified wood that we selected to showcase. They have diverse geographical origins: Madagascar, Brazil, and Australia. The species are Araucaria and tree ferns, including the relatively rare Paleoosmunda. In this particular slab of Paleoosmunda from Australia, the plant tissues were replaced with semi-transparent silica, helping to make the 3-dimensional structures inside the wood visible, especially when the slab is placed in front of a bright light source. The central part of the stem cross-section consists of pith, xylem, and phloem bundles. Note the elongated loops of xylem strands. These large cells arranged in a honeycomb pattern are cells of xylem, supporting the flow of water and minerals up against gravity towards the leaves. Here we have a base of a petiole defined by the ring of the supportive tissue, sclerenchyma, which surrounds the xylem strands. You have to remember that it's a transverse section, and each circular structure was actually a column extended in a vertical direction. The anatomical features are extremely well preserved, and it's hard to believe that they lasted from the Jurassic period and the plant was growing sometime between 145 and 200 million years ago. The common name of Osmunda is royal fern. The specimens of Osmunda are often found as rounded rocks because the original sediments from the Jurassic Age eroded, and pieces of petrified wood ended up among the gravel in the riverbeds of more recent rivers. So, the perfect cross-sections are hard to find. Let's check out this slab under UV light. The ability of petrified wood to emit fluorescence is well known. Many minerals can be fluorescent, but, in most cases, a small amount of certain impurities is needed to make the fluorescence possible. The presence of calcite or chalcedony is probably the main reason why petrified wood is fluorescent. The rest is determined by the unique mineral composition of each specimen. Most of the fossilized wood we examined had plenty of yellow fluorescence. Let's switch to another tree fern. We identified this one as Psironius brasiliensis, based on the long and curvy brands of xylem in the center of the trunk. Another similar type of fossilized fern, Tiotea singularis, has short and round, often C-shaped xylem bands. The specimen was collected in the previous century by local villagers in Brazilian state of Tocantins, supposedly somewhere between the towns Araguaína and Carolina. It likely came from the deposits of the early Permian age, meaning that it is approximately 280 million years old. The fossil plants from this region usually have pleasant hues of pink and gray. The tree ferns did not have branches, just long stems with leaves sticking out at the top to catch the solar energy, and roots protruding into the soil to absorb water and to support the plant in vertical position. As a result, the cross-sections from the bottom of the now petrified stems have thicker layers of the root mantle. See? You can now tell if the specimen comes from the top or from the bottom of the tree fern, right? The petrified tree ferns from Brazil are historically assigned to either to Pedra de Fogo or Motuca formation of Middle to Late Permian period, with high probability that petrified wood from Araguaína and Philadelphia areas belong to the lower part of the Motuca formation. The fossil plants from this place are found in intermixed sand and mudstones, indicating that they were dislodged during the floods and deposited in fluvial channels under mineral-rich mud near the shores of a large ancient lake or river. The analysis of the matrix surrounding the fossils, a presence of evaporites with gypsum in particular, and the xenomorphic anatomy of the ancient plants suggests that they were grown in the environment with seasonal droughts. Xenomorphic means morphological feature helping a plant to resist drought and store water. Succulents are a good example of plants with xenomorphic features. The presence of the remains of aquatic vertebrates in the same deposit suggests the existence of large bodies of water. By the way, among the early amphibians found in Pedra de Fogo formation are several species of dinosaurs. It's divino, not dino, like the famous dinosaurs. Now, let's move across the globe to the island of Madagascar, rich in petrified wood. Affordable specimens from this area dominate the market, and if you collect petrified wood, all you need is to be patient and wait for the right specimen that would appeal to your taste and is within your budget. Low percentage of petrified tree slabs bear evidence of fungal or bacterial infestation, making the piece more interesting. This slab of Araucaria from Madagascar has plenty of whitish ellipsoidal structures inside the wood. If you look at them under the microscope, you will see something resembling degrading wood fibers. Isn't it cool? Here's another piece of Araucaria branch turned into a rock. Araucarias have scaly leaves that can form arrangements unusual for most of the modern-day trees. Unfortunately, it's only chunks of trunks that survived as fossils. They're often not evenly round, indicating the probability of enormous pressure that flattened them into ellipses. Let me remind you that this is a piece that is over 200 million years old. Let's dwell on this fact for a moment. Time is important. In fact, time defines our universe and allows things to unravel instead of being frozen. What attracts many fossil collectors and people who like antiques as well is that you can catch a glimpse of the past, in a sense, take a step back and look from the distance to appreciate the magnitude, the magnificent enormousness of time, its infinite beauty, and the beauty of its infinity. It reminds me of someone standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down and feeling an urge to jump. Staring into an abyss of time with a clear mind is a brave thing to do. Multiple religions were born to put psychological blinds between horrified consciousness and that bottomless abyss of time. A fence to make poor souls feel secure and protected from that scary reality of the merciless universe. Now, I'll show you a few smaller pieces of Araucaria from Madagascar and their cellular structures, which may be quite diverse within a single specimen. Fantastic colors and a variety of microscopic structures. It's all a long-gone life, beautifully preserved in stone. I hope that if you have petrified wood in your collection, you will appreciate it more after watching this video. If you are inspired to acquire one, please remember that you will need finely polished surface to see the cells. Rough slabs do not do the trick. Let us know which of the featured pieces you like the most and what type of fossils is your favorite. Most of the specimens we own are fluorescent, but we are yet to find the one that would impress us with a bright green or red fluorescence. The effect, by the way, depends on the wavelength of the light applied to excite fluorescence. We have a 10-watt flashlight emitting photons at 365 nanometers. I also want to add that a UV flashlight can be handy when looking for the authenticity of a fossil, because modern-day resins used for restorations are fluorescent. Just remember that exposure to UV light can cause damage to the eyes, leading to significant and prolonged pain. The problem is that you may not feel it right away. The pain comes later and usually means a horrible, sleepless night with the feeling like your eyes are full of sand. So definitely avoid looking at the UV light directly. Remember about the reflection and have UV protective glasses on to minimize the possible impact. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to keep in touch, and I'll see you next time. Bye.